Hi, Jeff Murrah here. I want to welcome you to True Texas History, where today I'm going to be talking about the Battle of New Orleans and Texas filibusters. And you may think, gee, what do those two have to do with each other? Well, plenty. I'm fixing to explain that. And my reason for doing that today is because today, January the 8th, back in 1815, is when the Battle of New Orleans occurred. I figured, what better day to go ahead and address those issues. Excuse me. Get a drink of water. Now, the Battle of New Orleans is one of these episodes that, a lot of Americana is associated with. But there were many connections of the Battle of New Orleans with Texas. In fact, getting back to the Gutierrez-Magee expedition, the members of the expedition that survived the last battle had made their way to Louisiana and were there in New Orleans to fight in the battle. So you find many of the veterans of the expedition there in New Orleans. Now you also find some other interesting characters in New Orleans at the same time. One that we've mentioned is Peter Ellis Bean, who happened to be in the city looking to recruit people for the independence movement, where they were trying to gain independence of Mexico from Spanish authorities. You also find Jean Lafitte and his pirates. Now his headquarters was there in Barataria, and he was approached by the U.S. government in terms of providing naval support to keep the British Navy at a distance while their army was on land, which played a key factor. In fact, the British knew how important he was, and they tried to buy ammunition and supplies from him, but he wouldn't sell to the British for some reason. Now, there has been some suspicion that Jean Lafitte was actually an officer trained in Napoleon's army. Now, many times people studying American history do so independent of European history, which is a mistake, because you're going to have to understand the interplay of what all was going on. You had this large amount of French soldiers there in New Orleans in the Caribbean. They had been bottled up there by a British blockade of the Caribbean because they had come down with an expedition to go ahead and take care of matters down in Haiti. And since the British wouldn't let them back, you had this French army down there, and what are they going to do? Well, they ended up in New Orleans. And one of the things that surprised me there at the Battle of New Orleans, although Andrew Jackson is the one presented as the great hero, many of the people who were manning his cannons and who designed his defenses and built the furnaces for the hot shot used in the cannons were French officers who had been trained in the French army, and many of them had fought under Napoleon. So in many ways, the Battle of New Orleans, the Frenchmen relished the whole idea of being in combat once again with the British. And along with them were many of these volunteers from the Gutierrez-Magee expedition. I know history books will say, well, it was just the Kentucky riflemen that made the difference in the battle. Well, you also had a lot of experienced people that had been in Texas. Now, you also have another person involved in the battle, Jean-Michel Aury, and you also had Henry Perry, who we're going to be dealing with in terms of the filibusters of Texas. So let me run down the list. You have all the people that survived the Gutierrez-Magee expedition. You have Henry Perry. You also have Jean Lafitte, Jean-Michel Aury, James Long. And this was a concern for the Spanish government, so much so they had, what do they call it? I'm checking my book here. They had a fellow by the name of Don Diego Morphy, or some people say Don Diego Murphy, who kept an eye on these people. In fact, those that were interested in Texas filibustering were referred to as simpatico. And he was a Spanish spy there in New Orleans to keep an eye on the simpaticos because they felt like too many simpaticos were all in the same town at the same time. And they considered them troublemakers, and they wanted to keep a close eye on them. And one of the things that Murphy saw that concerned him, not only were there so many there, they were getting to be friends, and they were developing this interconnection between all of the filibusters. I've commented how the stories get intertwined. Well, the Battle of New Orleans is where they really get intertwined. They often go in different directions after that intertwining, but you need to be aware that it's hard to cover the filibusters of Texas without touching on the Battle of New Orleans and how everybody is getting together, because we're going to see a lot of involvement by the pirates and also by the French. There's going to be another expedition from the French. Henry Perry is in the process of putting together an expedition at this time. And so the Battle of New Orleans kind of interrupts the filibustering, but it also adds fuel to the fire by motivating many more people to be involved and wanting to grab more land out west. But I wanted to go ahead and do that, cover this topic since this is the anniversary of the battle. And I hope each of you have a good weekend. And until next time, this is Jeff Murrah wishing you vaya con Dios, my friends. Goodbye.